Greetings, a rogue dragon here, and welcome. We're going to play Ker Nethelas by Black Oath Entertainment, and I've got here Ker Nethelas into the Midnight Throne. I got the rule book here. That's my standee I'm going to use for my character. This is the Book of Masteries. This is the expansion. Okay. I got the cards all around here. You can't see all of them. You can see the edges. I have combat encounters stack. Okay, you can use, if you buy the book, you can use, there's tables in here to do this. But I just like the cards. They're fun to flip and they're faster. I have overseers right here. These are the bosses. Like each level of the dungeon we're going to be in has a boss. I have maps. I have exploration events. Exploration Growing Darkness, which is a game mechanic. We'll get into that. Exploration Overseer Influence, another game mechanic. We have traps, scavenging, corridor descriptions, room descriptions. And then over here, you can't see these at all. I have mostly like our loot. I have a stack for spoils mundane, spoils valuables, spoils precious, relics, potions, weapons, armor, lore books, and fragments. All on tables in the book. So all you have to do to play is buy this book. It's made for solo or co-op play, not for a DM. I highly recommend Book of Masteries. Okay? This is a supplement, and it gives more abilities for your player characters, more powers. So it's really cool. And I think there's a couple of new character classes in there. Okay, welcome to Ker Nethelas, into the Midnight Throne, a single-player dungeon crawler set in the necropolis. Now, I did a video already on this game. Okay, your character, who after miraculously surviving an execution, wakes up to realize that their problems have just begun and that there are fates worse than death. Okay? So basically, we're in a dungeon. And you can go all the way through the dungeon, I believe, and come out into someplace else, which will probably be the sequel game. Okay, we're using die 100. For checks, but it uses polyhedral dice. Okay, creating your survivor. So you roll which crime you were accused of. And there's all these skills. And you have all these skills, but you get plus 60 to 1 weapon skill, plus 40 to 1 weapon skill, plus 30 to 3 skills, plus 20 to 3 skills, plus 10 to 4 skills. You can see all these kind of basic skills here. There's masteries. So you pick 2 masteries, and you get the tier 1 ability. So you're a multi-class character. So for example, if you picked Abyssal Reaver, you start off with tier 1 Eternal Flame. 1 standard action, and it costs 4 effort. That's like your magic points. or sometimes it costs 4 ether to activate something and it stays activated. So we're not going to get too involved with that. I'm just going to show you my character. I had to get a drink of water. Okay. So we'll come back to this. That's our flow chart. Okay. So my character is Killeen, level 1. My personal goal is to poach and survive. Okay. My health, toughness, ether, sanity, magic resistance are my basic abilities. Okay. Character attributes. Health. It's calculated by rolling die 6 plus 8. Toughness, we roll 2 die 6 plus 10. And I always recover 1 die 4 toughness after a fight. Ether is die 6 plus 8. We got a 10 there. Sanity is die 6 plus 8. We got 17. Which gives me a plus 5 modifier. And then we start with 20 points of magic resistance, minus 30, and it's plus 10. And we'll find out why. So, my masteries are Stormbrand and Umbra Phantom. So you play a multi-class here, and as you can see, you do have a chance to have a third class. But with we have the 2 classes we start with, and Stormbrand's dual wield, so I can dual wield 2 single-hand weapons with no penalties. Okay, I can spend 4 Aether and infuse my weapons with plus 1 die 4 air damage per attack. It's lightning, they call it air damage. And then I spend that 4 points once. Okay, and as long as you keep it active, you just spend it and then you recover the 4 ether when you rest. And the Umbra Phantom's passive is, I got plus 10 meters and plus 5 something. We'll have to look it up. And I can spend 5 ether to sustain dark sight. So, at the Book of Masteries now, we're using that to make our characters because it gives us more choices in powers. So the Stormbrand, you don't suffer the negative consequences of wielding 2 one-handed weapons. And then you roll randomly to see where you train. That's just the personality of your character. Background. For tier 1, we can do infuse weapon or lightning bolt. I took infuse weapon, 4 ether, and you can see it says sustained. Imbue the weapon with the power of the storm. tactile plus die 4 air damage. And then we'll go over here to Umbra Phantom. You are one with the shadows, and darkness is your domain. Plus 10 magic resistance, plus 5 sanity. So, I did not write that in very good. Plus 10 magic resistance, which is up here. It's 30, and plus 5 sanity, 17. That's why we have a plus 10 and plus 5. I thought it was a modifier, but it's plus 10 to that, plus 5 to that. And then the dark sight, you spend 5 ether and it's sustained. Let's see. So tier 1, I can take dark sight or mantle of darkness. Always covered by a shroud of darkness, granting you plus 10 stealth. That's pretty cool. It's a passive, you don't have to spend ether for it. But I'm on the dark sight because light sources are a big deal in this game. So I got the dark sight. You can see in most absolute darkness as if for broad daylight. You no longer need a light source. Awesome. And how much ether we have? 10. So we can activate our weapon and we can activate our dark sight. That's great. Okay. So here's a little flow chart here. So it says to draw a card or roll for room or corridor. We're not going to do that. The reason being is for the first level, we have a pre-made dungeon. So we'll go into a corridor room, right? We can generate the description. We do a tension check. Okay, we encounter our check. A die 20 encounters with a 15 or better. And then you draw. Okay, or if it's a room, if it's a door, you have to check if it's closed. And then you gotta check for traps, see if there's a trap. For a door, die 20, 12 plus is closed. For traps, die 10, 7 plus is a trap. And then we can generate a description of the room, tension check. Is there a layer or exit check? You take a -1 to your light source. If there's an encounter check, you die 20, encounter with a 10 or better. So is there an encounter? Yes, no. Resolve it or check for an event. You scavenge. And the option to rest. Okay. So let's go over this. So we're familiar with the game mechanics. Attention die. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Moving through the mazing of crypts and tunnels of Midnight Throne will sooner or later draw the attention of wandering abominations and creatures, especially if you're not careful. In order to keep track of these wandering dangers, we use the tension die. When you make a tension die check, something that is clearly defined by the current circumstances your character's in, you must roll the die value currently assigned to it. On a roll of 1 to 2, the tension die drops down in value, as explained on the usage die rules on page 64. So I think we're going, so the tension die starts at 8, okay? After rolling 1 to 2 on the die 4, so it goes to die 6 and die 4. Growing darkness event. They only affect a single domain, but remain in play for that domain. So keep that in mind as you return at a later date. Once you enter a new domain, like a new level of the dungeon, for the first time, reset the tension die back to die 8. The following circumstances trigger a tension die check. Moving from one room or corridor to the next one. Making noise. Specific circumstances triggered by certain events or creatures. So we have our float chart there. We know when to roll, and then if other events come about by a creature, then we'll know. And then if you know the cards, here's a table for a growing darkness event. You'll roll percentiles. Okay, here's the rules for resting and setting camp. And there should also be a lair exit check. Okay, so this is important. When we enter the first room or corridor of a new level, we must determine who the overseer is. So let's draw from the overseer. If you defeat the domain's overseer, all opponents within it lose their empowerments. Okay, so each time you place a new room, you must make a lair check. Okay, that's on page 64. Okay, the starting die is 12. Once you reach the last stage, I rolled a 1 or 2 on die 4. It means you found the domain's overseer. Okay. So, okay. Once the overseer's lair has been located, the lair check is no longer necessary. Instead, you will be making domain exit checks each time you enter a new room or corridor. This is done via the usage die rules, with the starting die being die 8. Once you reach the last stage, it means you've found the domain's exit point. You can then abandon the domain and move on to the next one. Okay. Or turn back and finish any unfinished business. Okay. So that's everything except pretty much combat and resting, which we'll get to that when we actually do it. So there's one thing on my character here that we need to fix. And that is, I put down here personal goal, poaching, survive. That's something I made up. What I didn't realize, what I missed, is there's actually goals in the game that will, once you achieve the goal, you get bonuses. So let's see. Personal goal. Okay. So we have different kind of weapons experts. Master thief. Thought about being a thief to get the lock picking skill. That'd be nice, but slashing damage expert, shafted weapon master. Okay. So we're going to choose 2 personal goals. So air damage expert, deal 200 air damage, gain 1 air damage reduction. Bladed weapon master, defeat 50 opponents with a bladed weapon skill. Okay, I like that one. So bladed weapon master. We want 50 kills plus 1 damage. Okay, let's pick another one. Okay. Precision striker, like this one. You want to deal 50 crits, perk. All right. So that's all our stuff with that character. We got our skills, our stats. Don't have a damage modifier yet. Exhaustion. We start at 0. And light source we don't need. We don't have any equipment yet. We don't have a weapon. So let's look up one more thing. Okay, exhaustion. It represents fatigue, exposure, hunger, injuries, and other physical factors. It's a point-based system with characters accumulating exhaustion points as they attempt to survive. The effects of excessive exhaustion points are cumulative and can be seen on the exhaustion table. Okay, several actions and circumstances will make your character accrue exhaustion. The most common ones being camp activities, events, and creatures. Okay, your character can delay the effects of exhaustions with enough exhaustion resistance. The resistance score is subtracted from the current exhaustion total. The following actions reduce exhaustion. Rations. -1. Take a breather. -2. Okay, you can't consume rations during combat. Rest. -10 exhaustion. If you want to eat raw cooking supplies, you have to pass an endurance check. Okay, so accumulated exhaustion. Zero to 10, no effect. 11 to 15, you heal half. 16 to 20, you have disadvantage on all athletics, dodge, endurance, and combat checks. 21 plus, you're going to die. Okay. Okay. Sanity. So there are many horrors buried deep within Ker Nethelas, and unfortunately for you, your character's feeble mind will sooner or later start to suffer the consequences. Okay. So here are the effects of madness. If you do go mad, which we don't have a card for that, so we don't want to mark. We want to mark the page number there for that, so we know it. Okay. The effects of sanity loss. Whenever confronted with a situation that would force your character to lose sanity, you must make a resolve check. A success means that they've managed to hold on to their wits for now. The most common source of sanity loss is opponents with frightening or horrifying traits. Frightening can cause you to lose 1 sanity, horrifying 2 sanity. Okay, you recover sanity by resting at camp, +4. Defeating an overseer, +4. Certain spells, certain gameplay events. Suffering a madness episode, which recovers all your lost sanity. All right. So that's our intro to Ker Nethelas, and we got our books, and we got all of our cards set out here, and I got some standees standing by. So we can get started and have a good time next time. Not that we didn't have a good time this time, but that's just our setup. So we're going to do this playthrough of Ker Nethelas and see how far we get. And if we don't get too far, we'll just start over. I don't know how this game is going to work out, but people say it's a good game. So we'll see you next time. We'll start our dungeon.